mean, what he is saying here has lots of consequences for the world. What he's saying, for example, about supporting the opposition in Syria. I mean, I wouldn't be that happy after listening to this, his speech, because basically he's going to say, well, you don't stand a chance, and we are not going to provide you with weapons. So what does that mean? Basically, he says Hezbollah, in combination with Iran and Syria regime, and backed by Russia, are too strong to actually for the opposition to have a chance. So. I mean, this is a very it has a lot of impact. Also, what he says about Kurdistan, the Kurds, he supports them, but he doesn't support them militarily. So that means, like, the people on the ground, they know that they have to solve it themselves. The people in Iraq, they know they have to solve it themselves. So to summarize what Obama said in the second half, so continuing where we left before, he said that IS by itself doesn't have a lot of appeal, doesn't have a lot of support, even within the Sunni population. They are not really well supported. However, there is no alternative. Because of what has happened, for example, in Iraq, where the Shia majority has not been willing to make any compromises. So basically, the country doesn't have a democratic history. Therefore, to also make sure that the minorities are not losing all their rights, they don't have that tradition. So they have been on the standpoint that winner takes all, and Sunnis are just they lost through democratic procedure, and therefore they are left without any rights, without any benefits, and this gave rise to IS, and he really puts a strong blame on Maliki and the rest of the Shia regime, because they said, okay, well, they did this completely wrong, and basically through the democratic procedure they have forced the United States out. It's not only been a decision from the United States to withdraw the troops. They were basically asked to leave by the Iraqis, and they say, okay, well, they were not happy with that, but now they have to take responsibility, and the United States is a superpower. They are powerful, but the stance of Barack Obama is that if there is no local support for change, then why should we bully that area, that region, that country into changes by keeping the lid on the pot, so basically keeping things under control, when as soon as we leave, things will explode again. So without local support, it doesn't make any sense for us to put in new military. Actually, it's the responsibility of Syria, of Iraq, and of Kurdistan to fight the IS. It's not the responsibility of the United States, because what would happen is that basically it would take away the responsibility they took by sending us out, but take away the responsibility of the regime in Iraq. So they should stand up and do it themselves. And what they will do is give them humanitarian support. Oh yeah, so basically, like Congress, he criticized Congress, not directly but indirectly, but the Republicans basically, because they put the blame on Iraq, because basically whatever Obama does or doesn't do caused a problem. Wherever there's a problem, it's because the United States did this or didn't do this. He says, well, it's not everything is our responsibility. People should take responsibility. We can support them in the right direction, but we are not going to be only policemen. People should take responsibility, and I think that's a very important policy. As long as Obama is there, that is a real change of what Bush did, who basically he said, okay, we decide, and we just gonna bring in the troops, and we're going to kill any resistance where we feel it's necessary, with or without the local support. So that's so yes. Now he's talking about Israel, about the future of Israel. So it's a good cut-off point. Maybe all of you have already seen it. Okay, so what did Obama say about Israel? Actually, his story was pretty clear. In the beginning, he didn't really know how to answer, so he started like a whole history of how beautiful Israel had become. So he was gaining some time to organize his thoughts, I think. But then he said, like, okay, how can they survive? And the answer was clearly yes, because they have the military capacity and they are a rather wealthy nation. So there is no risk of their survival. But what the United States is aiming for is a two-state solution with Palestine and Israel coexisting side by side, and Palestine then should be placed in the West Bank, so very close to Jerusalem. And there is, first of all, a military challenge because it's so near, and with the rocket launchers that exist these days, that how to guarantee its safety. Well, that's a technical problem that basically they have the answers to. So the technical problem can be solved. So now it's a matter of how to find the political will. And while both leaders, Abbas and Netanyahu, have indicated that they are considering a two-state solution, it has been very difficult to actually realizing this, because basically Netanyahu has very strong support in Israel on the right-hand side. The right-wing politics are basically pushing him away from this kind of agreement for this two-state solution. And the Palestinians, Abbas is not strong enough to mobilize the Palestinians into making this big leap of faith, because basically the biggest problem is that there is still a bit wide gap between both parties. So they both need to be able to and willing to look ahead, not to next year, but to focus on the long-term goal and then create a roadmap that would enable this solution. But it's very, very tough. And the right-wing forces in Israel and the Hamas movement within the Palestinian countries are making this process very difficult to actually materialize. The United States would be in a position to basically force both sides, or basically give both leaders an excuse to start these talks. Because what you can do is say, okay, within the Palestinians you can say, okay, well, Hamas, I'm sorry, but Abbas can say, I'm sorry, but like the United States forced me to, or Netanyahu can say, the United States forced me to. But unfortunately, because of internal politics, they are not strong enough. So they are pushing, but they cannot force them into this situation. And believe me that like every United States president has tried to achieve this. So for him it would be a great political victory if he could do that. He would make history for himself and maybe win another Nobel Peace Prize if he would be able to bring them to the table and get this kind of two-state agreement. But he says at this moment, with the current situation, there is desire to achieve this, but the desire is not strong enough because the counter forces within both sides are too strong. That's his goal. So they're not going to take a very active role as of now.